It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Okay, I want to welcome everyone here tonight to the Town of Elkton meeting. Day 63 of this new administration. I see out in the crowd tonight we've got former Mayor Jim Krause and former Mayor Joe Fasona and former Commissioner, please keep it down please, and former Commissioner Gary Stewart. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. Okay, minutes of July 16, 2014 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Before we go any further, I wanted to mention that Commissioner Van Reenen is on vacation this week, and we, of course, as you can see, we start the meeting without him, but it was an event that he had scheduled well before he knew he was going to be elected, so he certainly can have that week off for sure. The financial report from July 23rd. Do we have a motion to approve the financial report and payment of the bills?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? The only discussion I wanted to mention is that when we are, from the Town of Elkton's perspective, we've really been pushing the buy local program. And I can say that I think most of the department heads, in fact all the department heads in the whole Town of Elkton is on board, and I can promise to everybody that we're doing our best to buy local from the Town of Elkton, and I think it's you may not see so much in this financial report, but as we continue to move forward, I think you're going to see more and more purchases done, not only in Elkton, Maryland, but in Cecil County. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Let's see. Do we have, let's see, the disbursements of funds was in regards to the
checks that are being signed tonight.
It's all.
Okay, very good. All right, very good. Gene Minner, I'd like to bring you up to give you your annual report. Gene Minner is our Director of Planning for the Town of Elkton. Gene, you've been with the town for how long?
22 years.
22 years. Fantastic.
As we discussed at last week's workshop, you have a copy of the 2013 annual report, and I have extra copies if anyone in the audience would like some of these. Section 3.09 of the land use article of the Annotated Code of Maryland requires that the Planning Commission prepare, adopt, and file an annual report with the local legislative body. This document's been prepared by the Town of Elkton Planning Department to satisfy that requirement. It was reviewed by the Elkton Planning Commission in April and approved. I recommended approval. The planning report concerns rezoning, special exceptions, variances, subdivisions, historic district work permits, and other associated projects dealing with land use. Are there any questions?
No questions from my standpoint.
And we had a week to review it.
Very good. Do we have to take any action on this?
If you just want to go to the, it says filed, so I would say you're adopting it. It's not the language isn't real specific in the code. So.
Very good. Do we have a motion to adopt the annual report?
So moved.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And the annual report will be placed on our website.
Very good. So if anyone needs a copy after the meeting, they'll be up here that you can pick them up. Or as Gene said, that we have them on our, it's on our website.
It will be placed, once it's approved, it'll be placed on our
It'll be
website.
placed onto the website. Anything else?
Not regarding this, but.
Were you you wanted to discuss about the sidewalks?
Did you want to postpone that to another meeting?
Yes, we were gonna talk about a federal grant that we received in regard to some sidewalks, and we're going to table that and discuss it once we get a little bit more information on the actual surveys. There's a lot of hooks involved when we accept federal money, so we want to make sure we're moving in the right direction. Thanks, Gene.
Thank you.
All right, town administrators report. Lewis, you're on.
What about meeting grounds?
Meeting grounds
Meeting
and
grounds.
parish foundation.
It's not on my report, my meeting agenda. Could you add that to me?
I did.
All right, very good. All right, I'd like to invite Meeting Ground and Parks Foundation service update. Who's going to give that?
That's Paris.
Oh, the Paris Foundation. And I apologize.
That's perfectly understandable.
All right.
Terry Loki is the president of the board of Meeting Ground. I'm Pat Marks, the executive director. We're handing out 2 sheets to you. The first gives our mission.
How you doing?
We are serving folks who are currently homeless and those at risk of being homeless. We run a variety of programs, many of which folks in this room know well, and perhaps some that you don't know so well. I will start with our most well-known program, which is the Emergency Rotating Shelter. It is our most well-known program. It is our program without bricks and mortar. We depend upon area churches to host the homeless for the nights for 18 weeks during the winter. We start the Monday before Thanksgiving and we go through the end of March. So for the inclement weather, but we are open each night of those 18 weeks. We had a phenomenal winter this year. And phenomenal in the amount of snow and the amount of issues and the amount of folks that needed to be housed, and the churches really came to the fore and did a fabulous job. Over 8,800 hours of volunteer service went into those 18 weeks. We could not have done it without the folks who provide those services. In addition to the emergency rotating shelter during the winter, we run the Mary Randall Center, which is a block away from here, as our day program for folks who are currently experiencing homelessness. Folks come there to get their mail. It is where they can have a fixed address so that they can begin to look for employment. They can begin to tap into services. It is their place to be stable until they can get into stable housing. Folks get showers, their mail, do laundry. We think of ourselves as a beautification of the town in that regard. The important thing is to get case management services to get people ultimately housed. We also run the men's shelter, which is on Main Street. Our men's shelter houses 15 men, 10 of whom are veterans at any given point because we have a contract with the Veterans Administration as a grant per diem program. And our women's shelter over on Delaware Avenue houses approximately, and I always say approximately because it depends upon family configurations, 10 women and 6 children. We have a wonderful partnership with the Cecil County Public Schools in working with the children who are at wayfarers, whether they be school age or even children who are younger, through the Judy Center and through the Child Find and the Family Education Center. So we are trying to build as many collaborations as possible. We've had some remarkable things happen. One of the ones I'm most proud of is our cooperation with the Aberdeen Proving Ground Federal Credit Union, which is working with our residents and our guests to work on their credit, work on savings, work on budgeting, so that they can get off the street and become stable. The other way we interact with the town of Elkton is, I have to say, a hearty and very heartfelt thank you for public safety folk. There have been times when we have had to cooperate with law enforcement for the safety of our other guests and for our staff. So we certainly appreciate that. So we're here to say thank you. Part of that is to say thank you, and I think I would be fired immediately by my board president if I did not make a pitch. And I'm not going to make a pitch because I have not looked carefully at the town of Elkton's budget, and I know what our own budget is and how we are working on faith at this point. But I do know that we pay the town of Elkton over $11,000 in our water and sewage. And if you all could find a way to forgive all or some of that, that would be a remarkable gift to us. We're going to have the Paris Foundation come up and present to you as well. The Paris Foundation, we joke, is our second shift. We do breakfast at the Mary Randall Center. We do lunch at the men's shelter for the community. The Paris Foundation does dinner, and then we go back and we house them at night. So it's a nice, wonderful cooperative agreement and arrangement. So we're going to have Mike Brandon and Bob come up to talk about the...
Mike has a question.
Yeah, before Mike comes up,
Okay.
if you could hold back. Pat, you have been with the meeting grounds now for a little over a year?
A
Or?
little more than a year.
Okay. And Pat has made several changes, I think. And one, if you wouldn't mind telling everyone who, if we'll just take the men's shelter, for instance, who is allowed to go to the men's shelter?
Primarily, we have 3 goals for folks, and maybe it's the goals that we really need to focus, because what we really do is select people who are willing and wanting to work on these 3 goals. Those 3 goals are safe and stable housing, increased income and employment, and greater self-determination. And greater self-determination includes everything from getting your driver's license to getting things expunged, lawful living, going to treatment, going to mental health services if appropriate. And we always say that those are the 3 goals. We list them in the order of importance, but you work them backwards so that our guests and our residents begin to work on the greater self-determination so that they can then get employment and increase in income, and so they can then get housing. So that's what we're really, really working on.
Pat, what do you think the success rate is for the residents?
Success rate for the residents, we don't have a solid figure at this point, and it really varies person to person. What we find is our veterans are most successful because they have a stronger support system, because it's not only us working with those folks, it is the Veterans Administration providing medical services as well. We've developed a very good relationship with Upper Bay so that we're getting folks into mental health services faster. A lot of our folks are struggling with mental health issues. A lot of our folks are struggling with addictions. Some are struggling with both. And we do keep statistics on that for the Core Services grant that we received for rotating shelter. Employment is the big issue, and in this area, the big barrier to employment, in addition to the barriers that people come with, including perhaps a criminal record, is transportation. So it's finding employment and getting to employment.
Okay.
And of course, affordable housing is also a problem.
One of the, you made a pitch, of course, for the water and sewer
Right.
Forgiveness. Could you put that in writing and send it to the board?
I sure will.
I'm not sure if we can do anything, but I think it needs to be in writing to us.
Okay. I'm happy to do that.
Certainly, there's a lot of agencies that you've mentioned that actually collab together, you know,
Yes.
to make this successful. Have you ever influenced the church other than feeding them that they could come under the same umbrella and be a different help to you? Because certainly there's a ministerial alliance here, and I believe
Yes.
at their last meeting, they discussed some way in which they could help the homeless population.
Yes.
So I guess they have a willingness to be of help to you.
Yes.
So I guess either they reach out to you or you reach out to them.
Actually, it's a good partnership, and what Mr. Gibbons is referring to is there's a ministerial alliance of the churches. There was a meeting, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, held at Elkton Presbyterian Church, where all the folks who are providing any kind of outreach at churches or organizations like ours and the Paris Foundation were there present to talk about how to work collaboratively within Elkton. We looked at the model that Chesapeake City is using. They have a Chesapeake City Ecumenical Association where their funds are pooled, and there's one central place where folks go to for any kind of outreach. We have pieces of that in Elkton, the strongest piece of that being Immaculate Conception Church, which cooperates with several of the other churches already. And this was a wonderful meeting that brought all of the players together to say, what do we do and how can we better coordinate? We're meeting again the end of this month, and that will be an ongoing dialogue of how to work together, both to assure that there's no overlap and to assure that there are no gaps in services.
your residents and guests that don't comply, what happens?
That's where we rely on other services, including the police department. We do have a very close relationship with Union Hospital, especially the 4th floor, and with the Upper Bay and with Eastern Shore Mobile Crisis.
So I guess where I'm getting at is if they're not complying, then in most cases there's nowhere
Correct.
really for them to go.
If, for example, we had a client come into Mary Randall Center who was not compliant, was asked to leave, and
Okay.
Unfortunately, he's basically shut off services. And part of it is a mental health issue, and he is struggling with that and refuses to seek services or accept services.
Okay.
So unfortunately, there's not another step in place as a safety net for that gentleman.
Okay.
And we really try.
Is there any suggestions on Plan B?
Plan B would be a good collaboration between us and the police department, so that we understand each other and know when we call for help, what that help involves, and that it usually is a mental health issue.
Okay.
And that the officers be prepared to walk into a volatile situation like that.
Understand.
So perhaps cross-training of our staff and the police staff would be a good thing. And just knowing that we're working together. We try very hard not to turn folk away because we feel like we are the provider of last resort. We are serving folks who have no place else to go, and for us to turn somebody away really has to be a very strong, non-compliant behavioral issue.
And it's usually a safety issue rather than we can put up with yelling and being angry and taking it out. But when it comes to the safety issue, that's
Understand.
unfortunately we have to draw the line.
And it's the safety of our staff, and it's the safety of our other guests.
And my final question, and alludes to what Rob said, if you have someone who's homeless or wayward, and you do try to help them, and they're not compliant, do they have a next of kin or somebody you can connect them to in case things don't go well? Because certainly you're not going to turn them out into the street.
Right. When somebody comes in, we do an intake form on them, so we try and get as much information about what their resources are, how they are in the circumstances that they are currently, where they were last, to get as much information as we can to set them back on the right track. A lot of folks have, while they have next of kin, they have burned that relationship.
Right.
So through addictions or through repeated incidents of mental health or both. So we try and build as many bridges as we can. We try to build as many supports as we can with what we can provide in collaboration with other organizations. But we can't fix folks.
Right.
Understand.
Something else we were just discussing, I had someone else say to me today, well, most of the population we have that are homeless come from out of the state or out of the county. We were just talking about the point of time survey that was recently done is 56% of the population were Cecil County residents. So more than 50%. So I know that's misinformation that's out there.
Wow.
So we are serving our own.
And that was really brought home to me, as Mary Jo said, I knew, and last year our director of the Mary Randall Center was Gail Mayo, who had been in the school system for 32 years as a high school counselor. And it was interesting to me the number of times people would walk through the door and go, Ms. Gail.
That had come up through the school system.
They'd come up through the school system, were problematic then, had her as a guidance counselor then, and here they are. So we do what we can. We're on very limited resources. We are facing a deficit budget. So the forgiveness of the water bill would be significant to us.
Very good.
Do you have the dates of the rotating shelter for this
Yes.
upcoming year? When does it begin?
Begins November 24th, which is that Monday, and ends March 30th, which is also a Monday.
So it was the Monday before
Before
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
when it starts. And I would say that Pat's really good about, anytime she's invited to a church, you asked about credentials to churches, she's a great mouthpiece for the organization. She will go anywhere and talk to anyone, and so will I. of our needs, whether it be financial needs or in-kind. We get a large amount of in-kind donations, which we could not serve our population if we didn't have that. So thank you for those.
And if you need to know what they are, they're on the back of your sheet.
Thank you.
And you can drop them off right down the street.
All right.
Cereal is especially appreciated. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. I can leave cards. I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
And we
We
always
appreciate the
have,
opportunity.
If you have a business card, I know that Charlie would love to have one.
so we also have monthly welcome times. I know we have one set for August
21st, we're having an open house at Mary Randall. We will spread the word to invite you all.
Thank you.
I was trying to hold up from this because I'm very passionate with dealing with people, and I know concerns are there for the homeless, and there are a lot of people that are homeless, but there's a two-way street that we have to deal with as officials, and I have to speak as a resident now. Just the other day I saw someone walking down Route 40 carrying cardboard, some mattresses on Route 40 corridor. And it could look kind of odd for me as a resident to see someone going into the woods with mattresses. Now, to be honest with you, the county, the town, we need to abide by what our rules are as far as no camping grounds, no sleeping in the area. That's a big issue as far as I'm concerned. Allowing people to sleep in the woods where there's no camping grounds, and we need to put our foot down on that. Not to be negative, it's just to abide by the rules. But we're inviting people that don't have homes. I don't like to call homeless, but people that don't have places. We're inviting them down into the town of Elkton from anywhere and everywhere. And these people that don't have places to go are migrating in these areas. How can we correct that?
Two things we can do is we can provide more shelter. As we said, our largest program is the day program for people who are currently homeless. We could be providing more transitional programs. Our men's shelter only holds 15. Our women's shelter only holds 10 with about half a dozen children. The rotating shelter certainly helps during the winter, but it is only for those 18 weeks. And my sense is that people are not migrating here. As Terry said, 56% of the folks in the point of time were born and raised in Cecil County. So it's not a matter of drawing folks in, it's a matter of being where the services are. I think we're very blessed to be in the location that we are on North Street for the day program, because we're half a block from the health department, which means I walk folks down for detox. We walk them to the health department. We walk folks over to the emergency room if need be. Police department is right here. Social services is 2 blocks away. The location is perfect. Being in a house built in 1911, not so great as far as heating goes. But it is an excellent location. What you do about housing, we have talked with the landlord association for the county to talk about affordable housing and how do we work with our folks to become, we've actually done a couple of workshops on landlord-tenant relationships. We're doing another one of those in September of how to be a good tenant and then working with the landlords to build those relationships so that when people do find housing, they're able to maintain housing.
I understand that your company's doing, your organization's doing a good job working with these people, but you still have the other 16,000 to 18,000 people in the town of Elkton that are getting hit up with the other ones that are not part of your program. And it's become an issue where we've got to start taking action.
Yeah.
And it's not just talking about it. We've got to start doing something. And
yeah. I have to admit that my staff will, as we travel around, we look to say, do we recognize this person? You know, if somebody's panhandling on Route 40, usually we are not recognizing those folks. They're not coming to us. I think in a lot of ways what we do prevents the panhandling because we're meeting their needs by providing the services that we provide. So I think in some ways it cuts down on the panhandling.
And you remember that Newark has services themselves, Wilmington has services, Harford County has services, Baltimore has services. So it's not like we're the only game in town.
Right.
That there are services in the surrounding areas that people, have reprieve there also, so it's not like everybody's coming to Elkton because we're the only place that offers sort of services, so. Yes, I agree, it's an issue, but I agree with Pat too, is that we're providing services, and if we were to close our services tomorrow, think about all the people that would be on the street panhandling because they didn't have breakfast, lunch, or dinner that we supply. Or a place, 25 people at least to begin with would not have a home. So when you come up with a solution, we'd love to hear it.
Very good.
And we'll work with you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and I think we had some other folks you wanted to introduce.
Yes, we're going to introduce the Paris Foundation. Mike, there you are. As we joke, Mike and I actually went to rival high schools a year apart. So we refer to each other as cuz.
Very good.
They provide dinner and weekend services when we're there during the week.
Did you leave the comment?
She's going to bring you a card.
Happy to give you cards.
Thank you.
What are the hours?
I know.
We are open Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, 8 to 11:30 and 1 to 4, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 11:30. We're closed Tuesday and Thursday afternoons to do more intensive case management with individuals. And the closure from 11:30 to 1 is so that people can go over and have lunch over at the men's shelter. Monday through Thursday, and then Friday lunch is provided by the Presbyterian Church through Community Kitchen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The floor is yours.
My name's Mike Brandon. I'm the Executive Director at the Paris Foundation. This is Bob Imperatrice, our Board President. We are both Cecil County residents, and our organization is a grassroots, volunteer-driven organization. We solicit nor receive nor will look for any government funding. I'm the only staff person. We bring 600 volunteers per month into downtown Elkton from 3 states. We have churches and organizations that participate with us on a nightly basis. We serve dinner 7 nights a week plus Sunday lunch, so we serve 8 meals a week. Since we moved into our facility on 229 South Bridge Street at the end of March 2013, we've served nearly 45,000 people who have come through our doors. We serve a broader population and a wider demographic than just the homeless. The homeless are the core of those that we minister to, but we also reach out into the community as well. You'll see our organization is for anyone in need, whether it's spiritual, physical, or emotional need. To that end, we have four legs, if you will. The first is the Matthew Project. That is our evening meal program. We open for our guests at 4:30. They may enter the building. We advise them not to congregate anywhere before, during, or after the meal, except behind our building in the loading dock area, so they are not interfering with the local businesses on either side of us. We have a very good relationship with the other businesses to our immediate left. We invite folks in at 4:30. We serve promptly at 5. Any evening programming begins directly at 6 o'clock. To that end, we have religious education, Bible studies during the week. We have a women's support group led by a licensed clinical therapist who target women who have suffered abuse or sexual exploitation. We offer a Thursday night recovery meeting on our property that's actually run by On Our Own, the mental health grassroots organization here in town. So we are linked with other organizations and partnering with them and sharing our resources as best we can. We offer a Sunday night worship service as well, but all of our programming is after the meal. We're not a rescue mission. We don't hold people hostage to hear a message or a program. They're welcome to stay if they have an interest, and we provide that for them. We also undertook a children's program the last week in June, where we had over 40 children that from the families that we normally serve come and participate from 9 until noon. We provided breakfast and a bag lunch for them, as well as the morning programming. We are going to be looking at possibly expanding that next summer, depending on our volunteer participation. As I said, we serve basically as a church social. Every night, a different group is responsible to bring the meal. They provide the food, they bring it to the facility, they serve it already prepared. We do not cook on site. We have a buffet table set up, and volunteers serve the meal to those that come in. We have tables and chairs set up, and folks are able to access that. We clean up, the volunteers leave, and the evening programming begins, and that usually finishes about 7 o'clock. So we try to keep as low a profile as possible, and we explain that to the people that come in, that they do need to be sensitive to the fact that we have neighbors, that we have businesses. We ask them, our volunteers, to park in the rear of the building, not to park in any of the spaces that the local businesses would be using. And most of the businesses are closed by the time we really get our programming going anyway. The second leg is our Good Ground, which is our religious programming that we mentioned. The third leg is Faith Works. We just completed this past Saturday morning from 9 to noon a downtown cleanup based at Marina Park. We do this once a quarter as a way of connecting with the community. We bring our volunteers in, plus the homeless who live in these tent cities, and they work with us. We provide the trash bags and some refreshments, and we meet at Marina Park, since that's sort of the epicenter. And the first thing we do is we clean the park from one end to the other. Public Works has been gracious to provide a mobile dumpster for us for the weekend each time we've done that, and we're very grateful for that. And we've done our best to not only clean the park, but then send our teams, our volunteer teams, up and down Bridge Street, Main Street, Howard Street. They're uniformed with the bright yellow shirts, so folks can clearly see that they're volunteers with us. And we collect whatever trash and debris that we can from the streets and the park, and then we go into the tent city area, and we pull out those mattresses, and we pull out that garbage, and we load it into the dumpster. That's our way of saying that this is a community organization and a community effort, and our goal is to build community. I do want to share some good news with you, that part of what we do is facilitate people moving from this area to another area. We have two families that I can report. One is just relocated to West Virginia. They had been living in their car in the Walmart parking lot or any place else that they weren't chased from for months. We provided what they needed to get by on a daily basis in terms of food and support, and they've recently relocated. I spoke with them this week, and they're being housed. They have one of them has a job, the other one has a disability, and they're living successfully in West Virginia. The other couple is relocating to Virginia to a family property. My truck tonight parked outside is loaded with donated items, furniture, and household goods to facilitate them leaving the woods, leaving a state of homelessness, and relocating out of the area. There are success stories, and we would like to be able to share them at an appropriate time as well. Our fourth leg that we are excited about, in fact, we just received our lease today. We're going to be taking possession of a property in the county, outside of the town limits, which will be our first recovery house. We will house up to 6 men who have achieved sobriety, and this will be a transitional program, 6 months to a year, based on the AA and NA model, for them to maintain sobriety, obtain employment, and begin to live productive lives and move out and in and back on their own into the community. That will be our first effort, and we're looking forward to beginning that hopefully by September, that we'll be able to accept our first residents. So those are the 4 elements. That's what we do. We try to be as cooperative. We try to find the niche areas. We are the night shift. We're the only ones providing services other than the shelters in the evening or on the weekends on a regular basis. And we'd like to see if there's going to be an expansion of services into those areas. We're open 24/7. My phone number, my personal cell number, is right on all of our communication. I hear personally from the folks that we serve whenever they're in need, and we do whatever we can to help them get over that hump. And we serve 365 days a year.
Wow.
Questions?
Well, I guess you're putting you're going to have a facility outside of the town of Elkton now. Is the location on Bridge Street your only location in the town of Elkton? Yes. And I'm assuming that most of the folks that come visit your facility are walking. It appears to me.
For the most part, there's some that drive. There's some that have vehicles. There are some people who are living in their vehicles.
Okay.
We serve 93 men, women, and children tonight. We average between 80 and 110. And you do the math, like I said, you look at where it's 45,000 in a year and a half. Wow.
You said your average is 80 to,
80 to about 110, and it varies seasonally and time of the month as well.
Any questions from the board? Thank you guys for the presentation.
Thank you for all your doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks
coming.
for coming.
Okay, let's see. I've got Lou, let's see, Lou, you are on.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, pursuant to the town's buy local program, on July 14th, I submitted a invitation to bid to 2 local new dealerships for a 2014 model half-ton pickup truck for our Department of Building and Zoning. Normally, we would buy under a state contract, but under the buy local program, we decided to submit the specifications to these dealerships. As a result of that submission, we did receive only one, but we did receive one from Ramsey Ford for a 2014 F-150 truck, inconsistent with the specifications that I had provided, and their cost to the town would be $27,569 plus tax and fees. Of course, we're tax exempt, so it wouldn't apply to us. But that was their bid. I didn't receive a bid from the other dealership.
Lou, what was the state bid?
Yeah, these under the state contract, Apple Ford, who is authorized dealer for the state under the state contract, the cost for an equivalent vehicle would be $19,856.
Yeah, I think
That's why we normally purchase under state contracts, because the state contracts are not retail vehicles. They're not vehicles that are sold as retail. They're actually sold through a governmental agency. So that's why they're a tremendous discount to local government.
Do you need us to make a motion to accept the Apple Ford bid?
If you wish to save $7,000.
yeah, this is bigger than
I
Do we
would
have a
recommend
motion
it.
to move forward with the Apple Ford bid for the new truck?
So move.
Have a motion and a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's the only item I have.
All right. All right, report by the mayor. Okay, I had a couple things real quickly. I wanted to make, and I made the board aware of it, but I'll put a little plug in for the Cecil Guardian newspaper. They're going to give me the opportunity to write a little page in their newspaper weekly, if I have enough to write about weekly. But I think the first article will be in tomorrow's Cecil Guardian. It's going to be called The Mayor's Corner, and it's an effort to attempt to get more participation from the residents of the town, and also be able to spread the message. And good, bad, or indifferent, it's going to be in there, and everyone take a look. And I'm certainly open for comments or messages that maybe we need to be promoting. I wanted to mention that we're going to head and move forward. Public Works is going to be moving forward to paint the farmers market roof there in downtown Elkton. I think if anyone's gone by it, you'll see that the roof is rusted. Our guys jumped right on it. They're going to put a rust inhibitor on the unit, on top of the roof, coat of good primer, and put a coat of paint. I think it's going to be farmers market green. So I think it'll give a nice look when you're coming through the town, and I think that anyone that sees that property is going to be very proud as they're entering in down through, heading toward the ball fields there. Wanted to mention to the board that I think that we've started to get a handle on our stormwater management ponds in town. I think that we have 28 stormwater management ponds, and I'd like to say that I'd like to see them cut at least twice a month. Quite frankly, we've probably been getting into them once every 2 months. But I know that we've moved forward. We've starting to get that underway, and I think that anyone that lives around the stormwater management pond is going to be very happy, especially as it starts to get a little warmer in the summer, that we'll have all those taken care of. That's all I have to report at this time. I'd like to open the floor up to Commissioner Jablonski.
Old business, or put it all
Any
together?
business you want,
Okay.
old, new, or whatever.
Old business, I know there's been some discussion about discussing the charter and going through it with the new board. When we did this several years ago, Michelle actually broke it up and set up sections at a time, and we would just maybe do one section at a workshop. So if that's something the mayor would like to do, and
Yeah, I think if we could take whether we get it together as a group at a workshop and maybe highlight a few of the points that we want to change or delete. Maybe we can get staff to start taking a look at it, and I think that us as a board can take a look at the charter and see if there's any changes in there. I know I really wasn't going to bring it up tonight, but I know the one on use an example of taxi cabs. Taxi cab, our ordinance or charter was written, and it's so darn old. It was probably made a lot of sense in 1939 or 1940. I know that we did a recodification in 1994, and we reviewed it, but we missed a few things in it. I can say that. I reviewed it, and I think staff has reviewed it, and that's one of the items I'd like to take a close look at, and I'm sure as well as others.
okay, thank you. I'd also like to compliment Elkton Police Department on two different things. One, the Junior Police Academy, Officer Shannon Conley and Skip Rowland. They did an awesome job with the Junior Police Academy. We had one graduating class on Friday and another one this Friday. It was terrific. And those kids, if anybody has a chance to come out and see the graduation, they are little soldiers. I mean, they did a great job, so I want to commend them. And I also want to thank them for partnering with the Boys and Girls Club for National Night Out. It was a terrific, terrific turnout. Detective Andy Tour was, I believe, in charge of that. So thank you so much. I want to thank Commissioner Piner for DJing there, and for Mayor Alt and Commissioner Gibbons for attending. It was a great, great night.
How many people do you think attended here in Elkton?
We're thinking about 400.
It was no question there was that many. How many hot dogs did you serve, Chief?
Close to 300.
All right, there you go. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So thank you, everyone. And that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Piner?
Just have a couple of things to caution the citizens. Since football and all these other sports are starting out, the cheerleading, and Delaware Avenue is very highly controlled with pedestrians now, because they're using that little narrow bridge, which I'm not sure where we're at with that. Louis, where are we at with that bridge getting?
It's in the planning phase.
Okay.
They were actually doing work out there, some utility marking.
Well, I noticed they're riding their bikes, walking, so just be cautious on that. Also, at night, I'm seeing a lot of bicycles after 9, 10 o'clock. Safety reasons, they should have lights on them. Just be aware, Chief, if you can tell your officers to at least try to, at least.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Gibbons, anything tonight?
I had a partner problem, but you and Lewis took care of that, so that's one thing. The other is, Mary Jo, please be aware and you remind your kids and the chief. One of the kids mentioned the other day that when they come out of the Boys and Girls Club, there's 2 places that they can walk across the street. Even though you have the indicators, the traffic signs there for people to slow down, they may slow down on one end and they're crossing, but people come in another direction does not slow down. And I guess he was asking if there was, a light or something like that that would really make the driver more aware of what's going on. You understand what I'm saying on both ends? Slow one end, drivers keep on coming
Yeah,
up.
I don't know if the town would want to put some kind of a.
And they may not, I don't know, but
We don't have anything.
I understand that, but just bring it to your attention that because there's a lot of traffic going through there now with those kids crossing the street and the elderly across the street, so I don't know what could really slow people down.
I was in Westminster and I noticed, not sure how they had this orchestrated, but there were signs in the middle. I could see them getting hit, but anyway, better to get the signs hit than people. They had signs, pedestrians crossing, and people had to slow down. They had to go in a decent speed. And now, like I said, I'd rather the sign get hit than a person. But this is in Westminster. I seen them like on Main Street in the little town areas. So I mean, that might be an
Actually,
idea.
that's a good point. I've seen that quite a bit through my travels. Maybe
They should be
Chief, you
going
can
no
take a
more
look and see if there's,
15, 20 miles an hour
Yeah.
anyway.
take a look
Yeah,
at
I mean,
that.
it's about, those signs are around in a lot of different places. It's a matter of the town deciding they want them and have a place down there.
Okay, and Gene, the sidewalk program, does that also include the sidewalks on the East Main Street as well, near the churches? Or that's,
No, this was just on High Street.
okay.
High Street and Locust Lane.
Lois, have there been any progress made on that as far as indicate what's happening with those?
I would need the board's authority to do that because it would be relatively expensive to construct sidewalk from the Presbyterian Church to Locust Lane. And we only have $20,000 in our whole budget for the year. So we probably need to talk about how we fund it.
What we talked about at the workshop was giving us some type of idea of how much it would cost us to go in front of the churches where all the sidewalks were decaying and collapsing, and replacing that with I'm assuming concrete, in some manner of stamped concrete. Maybe get us a number to see what that would be. But you're absolutely right. There's no money budgeted for any additional sidewalk work if we move forward with the sidewalks on Locust Lane, because that would use up the amount that we budgeted for fiscal 15. Not that we can't make it an amendment and take it from, I'm sure that the Mayor and Commissioners Fund has some extra dollars that we could pull it from, but I think that that's something we need to get a number to see how much it's going to cost.
I
We could also
agree.
look for grant funding for that too.
Mr. Mayor?
And
I'll open up the floor here in a minute, Mr. Stewart.
I agree that we should look into it and get an estimate, because we're gonna have a safety problems shortly, and people have been coming to us for a long time about in front of the church. And we really need to prevent something from happening there, so if we could get an estimated cost of what it would take to fix it, so we have something to go by.
I think that's what we need to do. And there may have been an estimate done in the past that we could pull. I'm not sure if there is or there hasn't been, but I'm sure there probably has been over the years.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, very good. It's time for, do you guys have anything else? Do you have any new business or anything that you wanted to add, Mary Jo? Or did you come on? Very good. All right, it's public comment time. And we have a full list up here tonight, and I'm sure that there's some folks that didn't get a chance to sign the list, but you're going to have an opportunity to talk. But the ones that I have listed, Miss Becky McKinney, if you would please state your address and let us know what's on your mind tonight.
I am from Elkton, Northeast Maryland. I come to Elkton 40 years ago.
Very
I
good.
know Northeast would be an elected follower of our town than what we are. Wasn't for Mary Jo, the mayor, Earl Piner, and Mr. Gibbons, we wouldn't have nothing, the senior one. I'm suggesting you got all this money for all these motels, hotels, and everything else. The new jail you're building right there. What do you care about these seniors that's been there for 50 years? Nothing. You have been reported 12 times to the state police and the sheriff department because Elkton don't care. Unless I call them, and I don't know how to do it, you don't.
Okay.
But you have to get a hold of them, the chief and everybody to help us. There's a lot of people living out there in the woods where they play ball. I think that's very, very intelligent.
Could I ask you to contact our Parks and Rec department tomorrow?
That's no problem.
Okay, and ask if we can bring together a program for seniors, and we will.
That'll never happen, because you all sitting there don't know one day you're going to be like me.
Listen, I'm right there, and Earl's a lot older than me.
That's right. And so is Mr. Gibbons. And so is Mary Jo. How do you like that?
There you go. But I'm going to be around tomorrow. Let's do this. Are you going to be around tomorrow?
I'll be there all day.
Okay, let's get
What
together.
time I won't be around town?
Well, I'd say let's try to meet around 11 o'clock,
Where?
right here.
With
And we'll
what,
get-
the chief?
No,
Because you
no.
got another one that knows how to work
No,
around here, but the chief.
we're going to, well, listen, let's do this. I will contact Mary.
You want to throw me out? Fine, I can leave.
No.
Believe me. I don't let the door hit me where it shouldn't be.
No,
I can leave
I don't
and
know
put
what
you down because I know more about this town than 1930. I got all the papers on this town.
Becky,
And you want to argue with me?
He's trying to set up a meeting time with you.
No.
Listen to what he's saying.
He don't want me to say what I gotta say in the town meeting. The senior sidewalks are falling down. Building as you come in from the road is falling down. No, we meet 10 to 2 too. We work for a living, a quarter an hour, 50 cents an hour. And you mean tell you're gonna do the drunken streets and dope alley streets before you do us? That is a no-no as a mayor.
Thank you.
If you think about that, then you know what? You're armed with the drug addicts and the dope addicts and the drunks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But if you want to meet
No,
tomorrow,
I will tell you when I'm going to meet. You
Okay.
don't tell me. I'm older than you.
thank you, Becky. All right, Mr. Dave Wiseman.
Hard to follow big presentation.
But you can do it.
Well, I'll try. Just had a couple things. I've been coming to the meetings, and I've watched what I can attend online. And a reoccurring theme seems to be economic development. This is the first meeting I really haven't heard that term being used in any aspect. We don't really have an economic development procedure or process going on. The Alliance does what they can, but you can't run a $12 million business as a hobby. I'd like to make a suggestion that we look into hiring a marketing economic development coordinator with the $50,000 that we're allocating towards the Alliance. The Alliance can function as a volunteer organization and be a crucial part of the economic development process, but we need a staff member who's a go-to person for the county, the state, that's a trained professional on staff that all people can get access to, and we know what's going on 24/7. I've been reading some local articles in the paper lately, and two of the quotes I saw on two recent articles. There was a Good Know Your Neighbor article. Lady was a legal paralegal, I believe, I forget her name. In her quote, she loves to visit Chesapeake City and Northeast. Just yesterday, Chesapeake House grand opening, Councilman Hodge, quote, people that need a long rest from travel and more than a bathroom break will find out what's going on in Cecil County. We want them to come to Northeast and Chesapeake City. We need to pique their interest. Not a mention of Elkton. That's pretty sad. We need a person on board in this staff in this town to be at those meetings in the county, to be at the state level meetings on a full-time, permanent basis as a professional representation of our town and our taxpaying dollars. They can spread out and branch out to every other volunteer aspect, the Alliance, the tourism director needs to be on board. We need that at the size of town and the dollars we're spending in this town at this present time. We've outgrown doing it as a sidebar, my personal opinion. A couple other things I'd like to ask about. Color Vibe run we had in June. Steve, did we get that check from reimbursement for the services for that yet?
I don't believe we have yet.
Can we follow through and make sure we do get that check?
Certainly.
Will that go to the general fund, or does that go to the police for what they put out, into the public works what they put out, or how would that be handled?
There'll be general fund salary reimbursement.
Okay. Other thing with the, at the last meeting, I believe, Mary Jo, you announced the date for the next Color Vibe Run coming up.
Yes.
How can the Alliance schedule something for the town without the rest of the town board and commissioners and mayor knowing about it?
I've done it since 1997,
For now.
before I was a member of the Alliance. And that was when Mayor Alt was mayor.
Mayor Alt knew nothing about it.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. at that
When you
time.
announced the date at the last meeting, not a commissioner or mayor, or the mayor knew that that date was being presented.
I believe people knew that I was looking for a date for next year because it was so successful.
I'm agreeing with it wasn't successful, but we need to make sure that we have we're short officers, we're 8 officers down. We need to make sure we have services available for those dates, and that is scheduled. Once again, if we have a person as a point contact in town, a professional staff member, we can coordinate all that so we don't have any
That
gaps in the
has
system.
been coordinated, Mr. Weissman, and I will tell you, the law in this town, if you wanted to run Color Vibe or any other event, for a new event, you have to give the town 90 days for permits with the state. That's why I always in January give all the events for the entire year, so we are well within the laws and we follow them.
All I'm making is the mayor and commissioners should know as a whole what's going on in the town before it's set, so that date's set.
Well, the mayor sits on the board at the Alliance, so they are a board member.
And we'll make sure that's correct.
I'm just making that suggestion. The next item we have coming up is the Boys and Girls Club concert scheduled for the 6th of September. Is that correct? Is that extra security, as mentioned in the paper, going to be paid security, private, or from the town of Elkton Police Department?
He has his own security.
Okay.
The police department has been informed about it. They've talked with the Andre, the performer.
Okay. And to make all the setup, breakdown, trash removal, and everything be privately funded?
That's all them.
Privately funded. Okay, because we have, looking at the calendar, on the 4th, we have, that's Labor Day weekend, obviously. We have the 4th, you have Music on Main. The 5th, we have the first Friday, and that's Saturday. If we had our police department, it's going to be pretty stretched out on a holiday weekend if we had to involve in. So I'm happy that is a
It's not
private
Labor Day
funded.
weekend, it's the following weekend.
Well, either way, 3 days in a row for a town staff working overtime. I just want to make sure that it was
The
privately
town does
funded.
not come to Music on Main or First Friday.
Somebody has to work.
Okay.
They are already scheduled to work, but they do not come out. It's not something that's large that you need police present.
Okay. And I just wanted, my main concern was that it was privately funded, and now we're not strapping the police department being 8 officers down at the present time with another event that they would have to be the security for. An event of that magnitude, if we're getting 1,000 people in that park, we're going to have some parking issues, and quite frankly, on the flyer it says we're going to try to have a peaceful event. I certainly hope we do have a peaceful event, but that many people in that park on a hot sunny September evening could turn a little unruly. We just had an incident in Columbia, Maryland, at an open performance where we had a couple overdose deaths, and I think 37 young adults were taken to the hospital. I certainly hope we don't get to that point in time, but
Well,
the security is going to be a big
To get
issue.
you a little more informed and the public, this gentleman that he's speaking of is a graduate from Elkton High School. He graduated from Elkton High School. He's from Elkton. He's been signed to Atlantic Records. He came to me wanting to give back to the community and raise money, and asked if he could have the concert at Meadow Park. So that's the story behind this.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm here asking that question, because I saw the permitting on the line, that you have to rent the park and all that good stuff, and there's a permit. I don't know if it's town any legal obligations. If something does happen out there, are we liable for anything? Is there insurance carriers or bonding? Is there premiums that they're putting up for to cover in case we do have an event?
He's working with all the logistics.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What did you say the town should hire a marketing economic?
or economic development coordinator. Put a
Okay.
professional staff member in place to monitor what goes on and have a contact point for all the county, state
I got that.
representatives and all the county agencies and meetings. At
Good
least
point.
have our own county representatives on our side.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you. Mr. Ron Warder.
Good evening.
How you doing?
I'm Ron Wardrop from 242 Douglas Street, and I really have basically two comments for those involved. First, I appreciate what's been going on in Douglas Village with regards to drugs and so forth. It's come in a short period of time. It's coming along real good. You know, I know that they move from one place, they just move to another. But when you start seeing a paper where they're getting them down in Northeast, they're getting, you know, it's getting around. They're getting them on 95 and largely, you know, a large area to cover. But they're doing good, and I appreciate what our new chief has done. I'll share what I shared with you. My granddaddy told me I was helping him out on the garage, build a garage at our house in Detroit. And I used to say, Grandpa, Tom, don't you think you ought to get a new broom? He said, let me tell you something. He said, this broom is just as good as the day I bought it. He says, it still does the same thing. He says, so you look at people when they take on a job as a broom. A new broom sweeps well, but after a while it gets bored. I've seen Joe Fasona come in here as a new broom. I didn't know him at the time, but I knew of him, and he went out sweeping well. I have to say that because I believe that to be true. We all got problems and troubles, and but we're at this date today forward. I can't bring back what's happened in the past, unfortunately, which I don't really want to anyway. The second, we have what I consider a new landlord who owns Homes for Life, I guess it is. Mark, and I can't pronounce his last name because I believe it to be Italian, and I'm not Italian, so I'm not even going to try. But he has really brought Douglas Street to a point where people are starting to care. I never thought I'd see that in a short period of time. I mean, he came in there and he bought 3 homes out there, and I mean, he did work on them homes and cleaned. I don't know if any of the council's been out there to see lately, but it's starting to look back when my wife first had that place 20-some years ago. I have to say this. I wasn't going to say this, but I heard about, a lot of people aren't aware of this, so I won't get into full detail. When I came back to Maryland from Missouri, I went to live with my brother at White Swan Lake in Chesapeake City, out on Telegraph Road. And a nice home out there, and I wasn't married, and my mom had passed away, and I came, and I just felt not really out of place, but, you know, when you're living with family, you know, especially I had my own ways, of course, my brother and his wife, you know, but their kids were talking. So I came down to Elkton, took some of my old friends up, you know. I ended up leaving my brother's house, which was very comfortable, believe me, and I lived across the street from the library in that shelter that was discussed. I lived there for 7 months. By choice. By choice. I remember as a kid with my grandfather, again, I have to say this, and I'm not going to take a lot of time, but as he worked in the garage, we had alleys. In Detroit, you had alleys up in the city. And Grandpa said, well, here comes the Sheeny man. What the heck is a Sheeny man? I didn't know. I was like 6, 7 years old. It was a guy that pushed the basket, and he'd go through the trash cans, and he would do this and do that, you know, and go and collect whatever. I really never followed him, so I don't know what he really got. I just don't know. But when I came and I seen what I seen in Elkton, I thought, what can I do? What can I do to not become part of the problem, but help with the problem? So I lived there for 7 months, and I left there, and I went over and lived on Curtis Avenue at the church. I lived there for about 5-6 months. And some of the people that I've seen were children of people that I knew, homeless people. Their fathers and mothers weren't homeless, you know? And it really, really bothered me, you know, for a long time, and it bothers me today. I've seen 6 or 7 people killed, not killed, but die from drug overdose and the like, and I mean, it was terrible. From what I see today compared to back then in 2004, it's a lot different today. I think they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You're not going to get them all, you know what I mean. Some of them just are homeless because they want to be.
Yes.
Not because they have to be. They want to be, and they expect people to give them, you know, because they're people. And I don't begrudge anybody. I mean, I've given people money and so forth. Used my car to drive them to look for jobs. Some of them got jobs, and some of them are doing rather well from 2004. I don't need to get names, but I know.
Thank you.
So, and I appreciated that. I appreciated the opportunity to do that. If anything else, it made my soul feel good.
Very good.
So, I don't invite anyone to try that, because I got in some pretty precarious situations at times, which I'm over 70 now. I certainly wouldn't even try it now. I got a hard time doing the mailbox where I live. So, but I'm really happy what I see here in the last 2 months that's come about. And I appreciate it. I'm proud of the government that we have here. I'm proud of the people of this town, because, by God, there's some good people in this town.
Thank you. That's a great story.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Charles Blankenship, 135 Wesley Street.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I'd like to, the issue that I'm going to discuss tonight, I want to thank Mr. Piner for spearheading some initial recovery plans, I like to call them. When I bought 135 Wesley Street back in '96 from Pat Ulrich, it was Pat's house for 30-some years. As a matter of fact, he started his real estate business in what I call my sun porch. When he sold me that house, I asked him, how am I supposed to get into my backyard? It's a half-acre lot. House is pretty close to the street. The garage on one side was built right to the corner of the house. Huge maple tree on the opposite side, in between our house and, at the time, it was Mrs. Hall, who was like Lena's mother. How am I supposed to get into the backyard? And he told me that there was deeded alleyways all through Elkton Heights. Elkton Heights being one of the first planned communities around Elkton. That there was deeded alleyways all through Elkton Heights. And I've seen some land plots. I know it's part of mine for my property. And one house over, there's a deeded alleyway that runs from Maryland Avenue to Elkton Boulevard. other deeded alleyways in Elkton Heights is between North Street and Bow Street. All the houses on North Street and Bow Street, their garages are off of that alleyway. Now that alleyway, it also runs over top of the sanitary sewer lines, and it's paved. There's another one that runs from Elkton Boulevard over to where Parkway meets Park Circle, and it's been freshly paved. It's not too long back. There's another one that runs off Park Circle in behind Dickie Schaefer's house, runs around the back there. But the one that runs from Maryland Avenue to Elkton Boulevard, that Mr. Ulrich assured me that that was my way into the back of my property. And there's also a section that runs between the properties on Maryland Avenue and Wesley Street, so that I could go in and make a right and come into my property. Not only are they not paved, but they're not even maintained by the town. If people want the grass cut, they have to cut the grass. The town doesn't come out and do that. It's gotten to the point now where it is so wet through that area, because the grass grows high and it holds all the water and everything, that you couldn't drive a vehicle down that deeded alleyway if you wanted to. About 15 years ago, it got so wet that the water was actually running down, the runoff water was actually running down into the sanitary sewer. So that the town fix for that was to come out there and put a manhole ring that stood up about 15 inches, which completely blocked the alleyway, which essentially took my access to the back of my property away from me, eliminating any access I had. I consider it a decrease in property value.
Chuck, was that alleyway open when you first moved in?
Oh yeah, I used it for the first 4 or 5 years, that until it started getting pretty wet, and then we said something about it, and when we said something about it, their fix was to come out there and put that manhole up and raise it up and just block the alleyway off. And for the last 15 years or so, we've been unable to get in there. And it's gotten so wet in the back there that when I finally built, fenced in my backyard with the proper permits, so my dogs could run around in my yard, I had to stop with the fence about 20 feet from the back end of my property, because it was so wet that it was actually mosquito-laden standing water up to 6 and 7 months out of the year, if it had been particularly wet. And so my question is, first of all, how come one side of Park Heights, or Elkton Heights, was the alleyways were all paved, all nice and everything, and then on the other side, I guess we're on the wrong side of town or something, they're not even maintained. And like I said, Mr. Piner, I talked to him about this, and we've had a couple people come out from the town, and as a matter of fact, just today, they came out and they ripped the 12 to 15 inch ring off and put one down that's only about 5 inches. Still can't drive over it because it's so wet. If you tried to straddle it, you'd still probably bottom out in anything but a U. My question is, are we going to continue to do something about the standing water in the deeded alleyways and be able to make these alleyways passable so that I can get in and to the backside of my property? I just built a flagstone patio out in my backyard and had to take 17 yards of aggregate by wheelbarrow from out on Wesley Street in my backyard, along with 7 pallets of stone, all by hand because I couldn't pull into mine.
Information on that.
So my question is, are we going to continue with this? Are we going to make these alleyways passable? And are we going to keep maintaining these alleyways to where they will remain passable, and that the people that border these things don't have to keep the grass cut down and everything? So,
Chuck, you made a great presentation, and certainly I don't know all the alleyways over in the Elkton Heights, but I think you hit home on quite a few things here.
right.
And I don't know if I have enough education on where the alleyways are.
Stop on by, Robin.
I will. I'm saying I absolutely will. I know Earl's been out there to take a look at it. Lou, is there anything that you can add to this at this point, or?
Only Mark called me today and said, I guess he was out there, but I don't know. I can answer the question why it isn't paid. I'm not aware if it was ever paid.
Well, I guess.
No, on our side, no.
Well, it's probably never paid because no one asked.
Right.
That's a
Probably
fact.
so.
That's probably the realistic answer there. But I promise you, I'll come out there and take a look at it. We'll get the.
Market said he located the swell, and they're trying to direct the water to go the right way. So that's what the report I got from today.
Right.
Am I
To
correct
the
on
point
that?
where once I built my fence, I just stopped taking care of it back behind my fence because, and it's my own little section of woods in Elkton Heights right now, but the water lays in there. There's actually running water that comes down from like behind Butch Bryant's place
Yep.
there on Park Circle and everything, and runs down. There's a 30-inch pipe down there where the water runs in and then runs out and runs across Bridge Street, or under Bridge Street. And it's just, there's no way that I could take, say, a truckload of stone or something like that through that area and get into my backyard. There's just.
Well, we will be on it. I'll definitely come out and take a look at it, and I'll bring whoever needs to be out there with me, and we'll make some type of.
The first time I spoke to Earl about it, he actually contacted somebody from the town. They came out, they got a hold of me, said, "What's your problem?" I took him down there, I showed him what was going on. He goes, "Yep, it's a manhole." And didn't hear another thing for the next 2 years.
Okay. It won't be 2 years, I promise you that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay. Mr. Capone.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Capone at 802 or 602?
My residence, 806.
806.
My problem is at 802.
802 Bridge Street.
It used to be a restaurant, pizzeria, now it's for somebody to buy.
And I can address a little bit of this for Mr. Capone real quick to give a little bit of groundwork, if I may.
Yeah.
Mr. Capone stopped at my house. He has a business on the corner of Bridge and right at Bridge Street, and kind of.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows maybe where the spot is.
Because everybody wants to put the signs over there.
So his business, the business has been unrented. And he's not sure if he's going to rent it. The issue comes that you would like to get rid of the water bill.
Well, the thing is, I decided not to lease it again. People want to put a restaurant back on, but my realtor says it's better than empty. I have no contract on it. Because if somebody comes by, they don't want any problem. So, by choice, it's closed. And by choice, I didn't pay the bill, so they would turn it off and don't get anymore. But here, I'm due for a minimum amount of $130, running or not. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you want to charge me a fee, but the water, I think the 28 or 29 was shut off. my problem because I didn't pay the bill. This is the final. Now, I like to pay a fee, you know, but $130, it's a little bit too substantial.
Understand.
If I could make an adjustment on it.
Well, I think that's something that the board needs to discuss. We have to digest this one, because I know that when we do we're getting ready to do our water and sewer rates, and one of one of the calculations that's placed in is different scenarios. One scenario has been the way it exists today is there has to be a charge or minimum charge to make everyone else's rates kind of stay to where they're at today. There's also going to be a scenario to where you pay for what you use, but there'll still probably have to be some type of, if we go with a scenario like that, there'll still have to be, I'm going to say, still some type of fee, a baseline, just kind of like a standard cable line number, but we don't know those numbers yet. So I guess your request to us is that you don't want to pay that water and sewer bill because there's no one there. And I'm going to have to look over at just find out exactly what our charter states, because I think the way the charter states today, if there's a water meter on there, you got to pay the fee. So if we make any action, then we're probably in violation of our charter. But I'm going to have to get some clarification from staff. I think we know what your request is.
Well, basically, you know, the water was going to turn off the 28th to the 29th. That's when the bill was extended to pay. And so by now, I think it's closed. I haven't checked it.
Well, let me ask this question. Can you tell me what happens if he doesn't pay that bill?
He'll continue to get the minimum billing, which is the equivalent of 9,000 gallons each and every quarter.
Each and every quarter. And then at that point, and if he doesn't, and if it goes unpaid, what happens?
Potentially would then go to the county for tax sale in June.
You may not want to do that.
Go to the town what?
Well, what's stated to me, and this is based upon what our charter is stating, if you don't pay your water and sewer bill, and you don't continue to pay it, then there'll be a lien placed on your property, and then it would be up for tax sale in next June.
One of those deals, huh? For penny due,
yes.
You gotta put a raise.
Well, listen. Here's what we need to do is we need to digest that, and if you could put it in writing what you're requesting for us, then it can be presented to us. We'll present it to council and see if there's anything that we can do.
Yeah. No.
I think that's what you're asking.
No problem.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Capone.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, I know. Okay, Mr. Jim Kraus, you're on tonight. Yes, sir. 451 North Street.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm James G. Kraus.
Looks like a water
51
bill.
North Street. And I'd like to add something to what I'm really here for. Regarding the code, it's always, when I served, the periods I served, which I served with Commissioner Gibbons for many years, and you, Mayor All. Earl, I'm not sure whether we have served together or not, but anyhow, there's a standard that is set where every 5, 7, or 10 years you would go through a recodification. And it's nothing that you review with your town attorney once you go through the recodifiers, but you need to go out to bid. There are companies at the municipal league, for instance, Mitchie is the one I recall, they did ours. I know I have the #1 copy of the one that was done in '94, because it was always given to the mayor, the #1 copy. And Michelle still sends me every time there's an update, God bless her, the changes in the code. Consequently, apparently the administration, I'm sorry, it's not the administration's responsibility, it's the government's responsibility. The leadership of the town chose not to have recodification since '94. So I would encourage you not to go through the thing yourselves until you've had lawyers who do codification. It's not fair to ask Mr. Downs to go through that whole daggone book, because what the codification purpose is is to cite areas of the code that are in conflict with state and federal laws, you know, from the time it was last done to the current time.
Yes.
Is that right, Rob?
You're
you and
correct.
Charlie were around when we, and then you come back and go through your sections with your council, you know, and so forth. I mean, that's the way it had always been done. I'm surprised to hear that over the last 10 years or so, there hasn't been a codification done, a recodification. And that's pretty much the practice with municipalities throughout the state of Maryland. And I have to add with the the water on Mr. Blankenship's property. That pipe was put there because that how big is that pipe going down there? 30 inch? It's a great big pipe. Anyhow, it was done as a result of the drainage from all the homes that were built up Ridge Street. Okay? And that's the way engineering, I think that's what you will find. When you go get your you really got to go get the plans and you'll see why that water pond's there. And in our wisdom at the time, we were advised to put that pipe there to get rid of the water. Well, it's obviously not done a very good job. And also to clarify one other thing, since I lived on an alley until 1988 in Elkton Heights, not all the alleys were paved because mine was tar and chipped. I can assure you that. So with that, but I just want to give you some, you sit here, you hear information, and you guys have questions, and you know, and I'm not saying I'm absolutely 100%, but I can guide you maybe of where to look. I'm here tonight for a totally different reason, actually. I received a letter from Robert J. Alt, Mayor, and Charles Gibbons, and Earl Piner, and Mary Jo Jablonski, and Daniel Van Rennen. It's kind of like an insult, to be perfectly honest. I was here the night, Mayor, that you were sworn in. You gave an inaugural address for this period. One of the comments you made in your presentation and went back online, because that's how I listen to your meetings and find out what things that are going on. You stated that one of your things wanted to get Elkton Pride. And part of Elkton Pride was dealing, for instance, like with grass clippings was one of the things you took a position on. You'd like to address it and figure out how we can get it done either quicker or in a format that, you know, that's so that things don't lay in the streets continually for days, to give the public works adequate time to pick it up or to get another process in place. That's at least the way I interpret that, even here. Well, I sold my house to my son on paper. We have a lease purchase arrangement at 103 Cherry Tree Lane. And your code enforcement officer, Jeff Holter, 2 days after you made your presentation, Mr. Mayor, issued a summons or a slap my hands or whatever you want to call it, because my son, in trying to keep with cleaning up the streets, because we happen to have behind that property a person who runs a landscaping business out of his home, who brings things here from Delaware, piles them in the street, and the town of Elkton picks them up. But there are some arrangements that go on between some agencies, and I don't know who, because I'm not going to stand out there and watch it. I got more things to do with my life than watch somebody. But my point simply is, I have a picture here, which he also sent, of where the thing that my son built, Jared, is in the town right-of-way. So consequently, we were given, let me see, I'll read from your letter. It says there's a recent inspection revealed the following violations. A triangle containment apparatus made out of 3 poles and burlap is on the town of Elkton right-of-way on Independence Drive, which is one of the fronts of 103 Cherry Tree Lane. The building inspector has measured and placed a stake where the property line for 103 Cherry Tree Lane, actually he says Cherry Lane, so he doesn't have the address even correct, begins, so that you may have a reference point to move the apparatus. Please ensure that the above violation is corrected, within 10 days of this correspondence. Folks, is this really what this town is all about?
Well,
no. Let me finish my point.
Go ahead.
We all, when we campaign, since we've all campaigned, you know, there's this thing called a door hanger. Well, the man's there and so forth, and you know, it's a violation. No daggone well, it's a town right away. had issues with the town on when they would put ruts in my yard from snow plowing and so forth. They would bring fill and put it back and seed it to whatever, the whole 9 yards. But, when you ask them to cut it, they're not going to cut, because it's like a 20-foot area up almost. So it goes way up to the side yard. The problem that I have is, number one, a phone call from his cell phone at the time, or later that day, or the next day, or within a week if he chose. But this cost his time, okay, to a citizen who's trying to do something he thought is what was kind of, concern the town had of getting the stuff out of the street and trying to make it a little more neater and so forth. I'm not sure this thing he built was very neat. It's 3 poles, burlap wrapped around it. He got 3 poles from down American Home and Hardware and the burlap from American Home and Hardware, so that's a picture of it. But then it costs $6.48, folks, for every time you send one of these. Now, you're paying a person's salary. You obviously are having somebody take pictures. There's a brand new Ford Focus or Fusion or some type of Ford automobile sitting there. So that's what goes on with enforcing this particular thing. Not saying it shouldn't be done, but there's got to be a more economical way to do that. In my 24 years of serving, at one time, Chief, you're not going to like this comment, but code enforcement, even for housing, came under the police agency because they were out and about and saw things and so forth. But I go back to the idea of a door hanger. It would be so simple, so much more personal. Give me a call. But your man says, could you call my office so we could discuss, this whatever it is. And the other side of the coin is that there's got to be some respect in this town with the people who work for this town, for people who live in this town. And not just because I served as a mayor. Every citizen in this room who lives in this town deserves equal respect. And that's why I say something on a more informal basis. How would you all like to get this letter in the mail and serving on this board and they don't even realize you serve on the board? That's kind of not too good. And you know what I'm told? It's the policy. It's the policy.
I hear you loud and clear.
I mean, come on, guys. That's not Elkton pride, folks. I mean, and Mayor, I'm sorry because I know you weren't mayor, and whenever the policy was put into place. But for God's sake, please review some of these crazy policies because they cost you money. I don't know how many of these are sent out a year. I'm sure there's some report that indicates it. I'm sure Mr. Holter was only doing what he's told to do. And I'm sure there's a reason to do it. But let's say it's just 50% of the people who are just innocent citizens like me, who would say, as soon as you gave me a phone call, would rush right out and take it down.
Yeah.
Well, you save half of the money. You're just postage.
I agree.
That's just postage.
I agree with you. I don't think we can argue that.
I just and I really do think it should be Elkton pride with respect.
You're right. That might be the hanger. I like it.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
And it has been reviewed.
Thank you. Mr. Gary Stork.
Thank you for recognizing me because it was not on the list. I never got angry till you said that it's not in the budget. Gary Stork, 100 Lincoln Avenue. I have a request as a citizen. I've been here, lived in this town all my life. I'm 73 years old. Now, one time when I sit up there, one of the biggest things here were safety issues. That's something besides public safety, that is you people's main jobs. That was my job when I was here. I have tried for 8 years to get a sidewalk replaced because of safety hazards. It's not in the budget according to the town administrator. So I'm asking you people, if you can't do it this year, for God's sakes, put it in the budget next year. I think that's only fair. And when somebody gets hurt up there, this is going to be on the record because I'm stating it. It is a hazard up there. All right? It's a hazard at Delaware Avenue. Earl brought that up. It's a true story. Somebody's going to get hurt real bad out there. And it takes one fast person to kill an innocent kid out there on bicycles.
Yep.
The last part. I've been waiting to hear from your legal counsel what is going to be done about giving parking spaces away. I have heard nothing on old business attending to that subject. And you and the chair made that statement that we can't give 9 parking spaces to everybody in town. So what has been done with that issue?
Well, that's a very good question. We actually discussed that a little bit at the workshop in regards to what we're going to do with parking meters, parking spots, and so forth, but we haven't came up with any legal opinion. Actually, John Downs and I today at 3 o'clock probably talked from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock today, and that was one of the things that we discussed. But we are on it. It's not a simple problem to answer.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
it was very easy for the complete board up there to say okay on this project.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm trying to say is, as a citizen, I like to see the second half follow through with.
Very good.
And that's the only thing I really can say. I thank you all for your time. I don't like to come up here and talk, but there are issues. And the sidewalks is a safety issue, just not there. You just go around town and look at something. A lot of our curbing is busted.
Well, I would say this, that I think everyone up here on this board is ready to move forward with the sidewalk in front of the, on Main Street.
Just remember one thing. I said this many years ago. Lou took care of it. He brought up the load of crush and run. Filled in a couple of areas for it, and that was the end of it.
It'll be done. Lou, we got to get that price. We'll find the money. Thank you. Actually, I have no one else's name on the list tonight, but I'd like to invite whoever would like to speak. Mr. Bob Litzenberg of Walnut Lane.
I just want to ask a quick question. I don't have to come up there for that because you can hear me. But this is for Steve. How much was the bill that you sent for the run that was sponsored here not too long ago? Mr. Wiseman asked the question, how much was that bill and how was it computed? Because I've asked before about overtime on functions and I could never get an answer. Said it was too hard to compute.
They haven't been billed yet. I haven't billed them.
Well, I guess that's the reason why you haven't gotten the check if it hadn't been billed.
Well,
It hasn't been billed yet.
That's right.
Okay.
I believe it was June 28th, Mr. Ray.
Well, we'll make sure. Listen, this is a great question. We're going to find out exactly where the ball was dropped, and we'll make sure we get a bill out there.
Well, I've asked before about the cost of the public works and the police department on different functions, and I was told it was hard to compute that, so it's never been done.
Well, we were
I'm just
absolutely.
wondering how this happened this time.
It's a good question. We're gonna. Can you? Is that something that you guys build out? Or?
No, they went direct with the town.
Oh, they went directly with the town with that. Well, we'll follow up with it. They went. The Color Vi people went directly with the town, and we're going to find out exactly where that's at.
Well, wait a minute. If they went directly to the town, did they keep the overtime, or who computed the overtime? Who kept charge of it?
I'm
you
going
walk into a business, you punch your card in.
I would think that there was a total charge for the whole event. I don't know. I really don't know. I can tell you I don't know that answer, but I will find out exactly what that bill was, and I'll have that answer for you by tomorrow.
Thank you.
Mr. Dwight Hare.
I just want to compliment the town today. We whacked the whole Main Street.
That's right.
It was beautiful.
It sure did.
Right.
Good.
A lot of times people get upset about things, but it really looked nice when people had to pick up stuff, papers. We whacked them. Good job.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Green. I just want to say, a while back I saw the police officers, they were traveling, and they, the town police, they were very skillful driving. And when they had to go through traffic, when they had to go on across 3 or 4 of them, I mean, the way the traffic was moving, they were very skillful. Just want to say they were on a call, and, you know, I'm glad they got better vehicles to work with. I mean, with these potholes and stuff, they have to go around, it's like, go to it. One thing about, you know, they mentioned about bicycle and the safety and stuff. You get some of these people out here drinking, riding bicycles, and I think that these people should be fined because they could cut across a bunch of traffic coming, cause a major accident, you know, and cause a big pile up, you know, because that's going on. You see it all the time. I've seen about 10, 12 accidents in just different places. So, I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, it's just different locations. You see that happen all the time. People not being not careful enough to watch. So, just I think these bicycles, people would be wearing at night some kind of clothes so they can see come up on this.
You're right. Okay, that was Chuck Freeman. Chuck, what was your address?
I get my mail 401 North Street.
401 North Street, thank you. Anyone else have anything to say tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, Pat Ogle, 137 Milestone. It's what he just said. I wanted to ask the chief of police, do we still have, like when I was a kid, we had what was called a jaywalking law. You had to cross at a corner. And you did that because you were afraid of a cop.
No.
There's no, because like going down Route 40, all right, I travel between here and Landing Lane probably 15 times a week. People constantly come over that guardrail. And it's like, is there anything that can be done about that? Yeah. Just legal to jump the guardrail and walk right across the middle of Route 40.
Yeah. I really, Chief, any...
I mean, if they're obstructing traffic, we can cite them for that, but there's no actual jaywalking law.
Maybe you ought to think about bringing it back.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to say tonight? Thank you. We are actually going to have a closed meeting this evening to discuss personnel. And do I have a motion to have a closed? We got a motion by Charles Gibbons, a second by Earl Piner, and all in favor? Aye. We are going to ask everyone to exit the room. We're going to take a quick break.